Ah, the early 2000s. Those of us who grew up in that era had it so good. Nothing beat the feeling of waking up on a Saturday morning and watching your favorite show. Cartoon Network was putting out banger after absolute banger, and that channel was on constantly in my house. The first one I got into was Justice League. I may have a lot more to say about that sometime down the line. But a couple years after that, Teen Titans debuted. Naturally, I was immediately drawn to it. The idea of watching an entirely different team of heroes, including the sidekick of one of the main ones in Justice League, was quite intriguing. I always wondered why Robin never showed up in JL, and I was curious to know what he was up to. Of course, Teen Titans wasn't actually in the DCAU, but I didn't know that at the time. I was a little kid, it was all the same to me. In fact, I wasn't even familiar at all with any of the other characters. All of my familiarity with DC came from Super Friends and Justice League. I wasn't really a comic reader. I was hooked from the jump. Many of my classmates were as well, and we were constantly talking about it. I had to watch every single episode as soon as it came out, and a week was way too long to wait for the next one. I loved the animation style, the action was awesome, and Slade was one of the best and most unique villains I'd ever seen. Plus, a lot of the humor was geared towards kids as well. However, compared to some of the other cartoons I grew up watching constantly, for whatever reason, I haven't come back to this one very much. In fact, prior to the recent rewatch for the purpose of this video series, I'm not even sure I have ever even watched the show as an adult. I definitely remember some stuff, at least the big stuff, but there is a lot to this show that I did not remember at all. And I don't just mean specific occurrences and moments, but themes and character depth as well, stuff you don't tend to notice as much as a kid. Because of these extra layers, I'm getting a lot more out of this rewatch than I expected, and I'm very happy to report that while it's definitely geared towards kids, and certainly has a lot for them, there is a lot there for adults as well, something I didn't necessarily anticipate. Point being, this is going to be a much more fun and interesting review series than I originally thought. Certainly much easier than the Yu-Gi-Oh one, as the seasons are a quarter as long, making me much more inclined to take risks here. Plus, I have actually heard from multiple people that really wanted me to talk about Teen Titans, so we'll see how this goes. Just saying, even the tiniest help on Patreon would go a very long way if you guys want to see this series continue, and if not that, likes are massively important for the algorithm and cost absolutely nothing, not even time. So without further ado, let's get into it. I'm going to analyze Teen Titans Season 1, episode by episode, diving deep into the storylines, themes, character arcs, and then giving my conclusion on the entire season as a whole at the end. The hope is to do this for every season of the show. I would certainly like to. Here we go. The series opener is Divide and Conquer. But Kurt, isn't it Final Exam? Nope. Divide and Conquer was actually the third episode released, but the first one chronologically. Why did Cartoon Network do this sometimes? I have no idea, but Justice League did it a couple times too. Even the Blu-ray has it wrong. Quite annoying. So it opens with a big stone-like villain called Cinderblock breaking another villain, Plasmus, out of jail. We get introduced to our Titans in a cheesy but awesome way. We see all of their abilities. Beast Boy can change into animals. Cyborg is cybernetically enhanced and super strong and has a cannon on his robotic arm. Awesome. Starfire can fly and shoot energy from her hands. Raven has some crazy witch magic powers, and I dig it. I had a huge crush on Raven growing up. If you remember what I said in my Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost video, I think I'm sensing a trend here. I definitely have a type. Anyway, I'm sure we'll learn more about their powers later. Robin doesn't have any. He's the fearless leader, getting by strictly on his intellect and training. He's the Batman of the group, which is quite fitting. Cyborg and Robin mess up their big move, the sonic boom, and Cinderblock gets away with Plasmus. It's very interesting that they did the team breakup thing in the very first episode. A character quits before we even know him. If nothing else, it makes for some interesting tension. I would be remiss if I didn't mention how awesome the intro is. One of my all-time favorites. So much nostalgia. One of the best songs to have stuck in my head. That's an intro I will never skip. The music in general is also great. The show very much has an anime feel to it, and I dig that. With the exaggerated character expressions, the characters changing sizes, backgrounds going away, so on and so forth. Combine that with the Cartoon Network look and music and sound effects, and you have an anime-ified Justice League, and I am not complaining about that. We also get a slight introduction to the group dynamic here. Robin Robin is the leader, but is clearly insecure. Starfire is a naive, outgoing, free spirit. Raven is a cynic. Beast Boy is the goofball, and Cyborg is the cool guy, who of course comes through in the end, even capturing Cinderblock off-screen. The action is fun. Plasmus is a cool, Clayface-like villain that is constantly changing forms, but by far and away, the best thing about this episode is the fact that it introduces us to the overarching big villain of the show, Slade. Guess they couldn't call him Deathstroke in a kid's show because it has the word death in it. Slade is one of my favorite villains of all time, and I can't wait to further explore him as the show goes along. Here, we just get a little tease. We don't even hear his name, just this mysterious, ominous guy pulling the strings. He has an incredible screen presence that is felt from the moment we see him. Despite being very quiet and reserved, Ron Perlman's brilliant voice acting is a huge part of that. In fact, that almost makes him scarier.
I will annihilate them, Robin, and I'll make you watch.
We know very little about him, but we can tell he's going to be a problem going forward, and we can't wait to learn more. Introducing the main villain in a mysterious way in the first episode is a massive trope, but damn if it doesn't work. This is how you get people hooked on a show. Episode 2, Sisters, opens at a carnival. Wait, Starfire makes a reference to the Gordanians? Is that the same Gordanians from Justice League? If so, that is awesome. Fun little Easter egg for DC animation fans. I also love her being absolutely blown away by cotton candy disappearing in your mouth. We've all been there at some point, usually as little kids.
It vanished!
Watching her experience things for the first time and become accustomed to the traditions of America and the world in general is a really fun perk of her character. In this episode, we meet Starfire's sister, Blackfire. Basically the complete opposite of Star. She's a sarcastic, cool rebel, a stark contrast to Star's childlike curiosity and naivete. Of course, the Titans all flock to Blackfire, which makes Star sad and jealous, understandably so. Hynden Walsh, I hope I said that right, the voice of Starfire, does a great job pulling double duty here as both sisters with opposing personalities. Side note, but Raven is a horror movie fan. Of course she is. I'm liking her more and more. Anyway, some aliens called Centauri come to Earth to capture Star when of course they were actually after Blackfire. Even as someone who hadn't watched the show in a long time and remembered very little about it, that was pretty obvious from the jump. But it must have been a pretty big surprise back in the day. Us as kids watching, like the Titans, thought that Blackfire was so cool. There is a lesson to be learned here. The grass is not always greener, and the shiny new toy is never what it seems. The episode does such a good job getting that point across in just 20 minutes, something the show excels at. Along with that, it also plants a few seeds for a potential Robin and Starfire romance. They're definitely cute together. I honestly don't even remember if it goes anywhere, but the signs are there for sure. Doesn't advance the Slade storyline or anything, but not every episode needs to. Really solid one-off that has something to say and has some really solid character development for Starfire, a character that could easily not work, but is definitely in the right hands here. Episode 3 is Final Exam. Not to harp on this again, but this was released first, despite being the third episode chronologically. It's wrong on the streaming services, on IMDb, on the Blu-ray, everywhere. Because of this, I imagine most people watch these out of order. It clearly takes place after Divide and Conquer, and it makes much more sense to watch it after that. This one sees 3 potential new recruits to work for Slade have to face one final test, or exam, if you will, to destroy the Teen Titans. The members are Gizmo, a little tech guy, Jinx, a witch of sorts, and Mammoth, the muscle. Honestly, this hardly seems fair. You should at least get the same number of members that the Titans have. This one has some solid action, fun trash talk, especially from Gizmo. The kid has some pretty good insults, I'll give him that.
Let me go, you scuzz-munching zit!
I've always enjoyed the character. We even have a fake-out Robin death, evening the playing field a bit for a portion of the episode, and the Titans lose control of the tower to Slade's goons. What can I say? I like these team versus team episodes. They're simple but effective entertainment. Wait, did they use the same T-Rex sound effect for Beast Boy that they did for Jurassic Park? It sure sounds like it, and that's awesome if that's the case, especially considering at the time of watching this, I just rewatched the Jurassic Park movies. What I love about this episode is the fact that it highlights the importance of Robin in this group. Everyone knew he was going to come back, but that wasn't the point. The point was to give us a glimpse of the Titans without him. He is easily the least powerful. In fact, he doesn't even have any powers at all, but he's the leader, the glue that holds it all together, and without him, it all falls apart. They lose, they bicker, it's dysfunctional. With him, the teamwork is great, they're firing on all cylinders, and they take the tower back. It's not just him, though. The team needs to be together, all 5 of them. If just one piece is missing, it throws the whole thing off. They all have a very important part to play, and the final battle really showcases that. This is also the first time the Titans hear the name Slade, which gives them a larger objective now to figure out who that is and what he's up to. That was actually Slade's true goal here. He didn't think those 3 would win, he just wanted to get his name out there. Everything is going according to plan for him. I like how each episode, at least so far, advances the overarching story, does some interesting character work, or, in this case, both. And as alluded to before, they utilize the 20-minute runtimes so well. Episode 4 is Forces of Nature. It opens with Beast Boy trying to pull a prank on Cyborg, but whoops, he accidentally hits Starfire instead, and she takes it so seriously. Definitely the last person you'd want to prank. Again, she is very sweet and kind, but doesn't really understand humor, jokes, or pranks, so she understandably gets very offended by it. This one sees the Titans take on superpowered brothers Thunder and Lightning, who are sadists? They seem to be wreaking havoc just for the pure enjoyment they get out of it, and without care for the consequences. Lightning seems to be the more sinister one, dragging Thunder along. Thunder seems to be more of a simpleton, not fully understanding the severity of what they're doing. The brothers get recruited by a mysterious, seemingly frail old man. It's pretty obvious to us, at least as adults, that it's Slade. He uses them to create some giant fire monster. Beast Boy is finally able to get through to Thunder, who is also able to get through to his brother, and they help take down the fire monster. This episode does a few things quite well. It's a very Beast Boy-centric episode, as it highlights how kind and genuine he is. He spends the entire episode apologizing to Star for a prank gone wrong. I know the feeling. We all know what it's like to have something that seems so innocent go wrong and upset someone and feel very bad about it. It's easy to empathize with both characters here, and Star forgiving him was a really heartfelt moment. Beast Boy realizes that Thunder and Lightning are also good people deep down, just misguided. He sees a parallel between them and himself and uses the lessons he learns to teach them a similar lesson. Of course, the degree to which the action caused harm is way different, but it totally works. The message of the episode is that if you have unique gifts, use them for good. A simple but effective message. It also gives us another glimpse of Slade, the most we've seen of him up until this point. I love his constant, slowly increasing presence in the season. Another one with great character work and advancement of the larger story. Next is the sum of his parts. I love how all of these episodes show the Titans doing things that regular people, especially young people, do on an average day, displaying their camaraderie and friendship. Then something always happens during it and incites the episode. I also love all the Titans getting their chance to be at the forefront. This one focuses on Cyborg, who's having battery issues. Makes sense given the fact that he's, a cyborg. He gets separated from the group during a battle with a nefarious magician called Mumbo and lands in the care of a robot called Fix-It, who has sort of an underground layer of robots. He fixes Cyborg, but refuses to let him leave. Fix-It, by the way, kind of reminds me of Brainiac in the way that he looks and speaks.
Will you remain? It is for the best.
He seems helpful at first, then we realize he plans to turn Cyborg fully robot, therefore eliminating what he perceives as flaws that come with his human side and perfecting him. Of course, the opposite is true. Having cybernetic enhancements is cool and all, but being human is truly special and is what makes Cyborg who he is. Even Fix-It comes to that realization after a peek into Cyborg's mind. This is 2 straight episodes where one of our heroes shows a misguided villain the error of their ways, and I think that's awesome. Earlier in the episode, a kid with a fake arm came up to Cyborg, telling him how much he looked up to him because they're one and the same. At the end of the episode, that comes back around in a really nice way, and we see the kid again, and Cyborg tells him, yeah, we are the same.
But it's not your arm that makes us the same. It's the stuff connected to it.
and points to his heart. It's a really sweet moment. Really sweet episode overall. No Slade stuff, but like I said, we don't always need that. Sometimes episodes just work on their own, and this is one of those. Really glad Cyborg got his chance to shine. Speaking of chance to shine, now it's Raven's turn with one of my favorite episodes, Nevermore. The cold opening of this sees the Titans face off against a villain called Dr. Light, voiced by the great Roger Bumpus, aka Squidward, in a scene that looks, feels, and sounds straight out of Justice League. This one has the Japanese intro. Interesting. I wonder why that is. This episode, Raven is the main character who up until this point was the only member of the team to not get the chance to be at the forefront of an episode and was very mysterious up until this point. During said fight with Dr. Light, Raven seems to lose control of her temper and therefore her powers. Beast Boy and Cyborg try to help her and accidentally end up in an alternate dimension of sorts, which is pretty creepy. This episode has some stuff straight out of a horror movie, which I, as a huge horror fan, love, and it's perfectly fitting for Raven's character. We meet a more jovial, giggly Raven in there, which is also pretty jarring, a huge departure from her typical personality. Side note, but Cyborg's arm cannon sounds like the sound Green Lantern's ring makes in Justice League. That's dope. There are many different Ravens in this dimension. There is obviously a lot more going on with her than meets the eye. Together, Cyborg and Beast Boy help Raven defeat her inner demons and daddy issues. Definitely hoping we find out more about that down the line. Wait a minute. Friends teaming up to help another friend defeat the darkness within as a metaphor for depression? Did Thunderbolts steal from Teen Titans? I'm joking. I love Thunderbolts, by the way. Just pointing out the similarities. In this, all of Raven's other moods, or personalities, help out as well. The power of friendship comes through again, and Raven confirms that they are indeed friends. Another really sweet moment. Man, there really is more to this show than I remember. I may not have realized this as a kid, but this episode is clearly about mental health. Raven clearly has some stuff going on, which is why she's so afraid to open up to people. She's afraid they won't like her, or that she will hurt them. Of course, none of us are as powerful as her, but that's a general concept many of us can relate to. It just manifests physically here with her struggling to control her powers. Fantastic character study, shining light on someone who we knew very little about until this point, and exploring mental health in a way I did not expect in a cartoon, with some pretty amazing visuals as well inside Raven's mind. And can I just say, as far as ultra-powerful women with mental health issues, this is so much better written and handled with much better care than Multiverse of Frickin' Madness. Sorry, I will never miss an opportunity to express my immense frustration with that movie. Take notes, Michael Waldron. This is how you do it. Nevermore was probably my favorite episode yet. Despite the second straight episode without Slade, I do hope he pops up again, but having him here probably would have distracted from the purpose of this episode. Incredible standalone episode, certainly the darkest and most mature episode we have seen yet, and that is a compliment. Episode 7 is switched. Right off the bat, I can tell this Puppet Master character is the same voice actor as Mofir from Justice League.
You'll not destroy this world!
Awesome. I love voice acting crossovers like that. The Puppet Master sends puppet versions of the Titans to them. They think it's just a gift from a fan, but obviously there's a sinister motive. He switches the Titans with their puppets so that he can control them. But when he tries to do it with Starfire and Raven, Raven casts a spell to mess with it and accidentally ends up switching her body and Star's body. There's your hook for the episode, and it's absolutely hilarious. I love a good body swap, though I really wish they would have kept the same voices. That makes more sense, and for some reason the writers tend to never do that, except in, well, maybe we'll get there someday.
I have no idea who this is.
Though on the flip side, it's really funny to hear Raven's voice out of Star's body and vice versa, though I think it'd be even funnier if we'd have to hear Star's personality in Raven's voice and vice versa. Star explaining to Raven how to use her powers had me dying. It's so vague. I don't know how she could have possibly figured that out.
Okay, how do you fly this thing?
You must feel flight.
These two have an awesome dynamic. They're literally complete opposite people, and switching their bodies was a perfect way to get them to bond more and understand each other better. Not just each other's powers, but as people too. Raven is annoyed at Star's naivete and bubbly energy. Star doesn't understand why Raven is always so pouty and brooding, but they come to sort of a middle point. Raven sees the appeal of being more positive, and Star sees why Raven isn't inclined to be so positive all the time. They're also both super powerful, and together, even when they're using each other's powers, they're still able to defeat the other three. Go girls! This is a really fun episode. Puppet Master is a really creepy villain. Wonderful to see more of him at some point. Making this one almost entirely about the two girls of the group was awesome. Without having to spread things around so much, we get some really good character work for those two. As stated, they couldn't be more different, but they learn from each other and become pretty good friends by the end of the episode. They even meditate and go to the mall together at the end. How sweet is that? They will never be the same person. They'll never have the same outlook on the world. But they're both good people doing good things, and their clashing personalities make them both better people. And that's what this episode is about. I guess I'm just going to have to deal with the fact that Slade is on the back burner for now, but that's okay, because I'm enjoying these so much. Up next is Deep Six, a lower tier episode for the season, in my opinion. This one sort of reminds me of The Enemy Below from Justice League. It sees the Titans team up with Aqualad to take down Trident, who has been wreaking havoc across the sea.
I am excellence. I am perfection. I am Trident.
I recognize from the minute he spoke that Trident is voiced by the legendary Clancy Brown. The man just makes everything better. Japanese intro again. Interesting. If anyone knows the rhyme or reason as to which episodes have that one, let me know, because I have no idea. Now, I'm not much of a comic reader, so I know very little about Aqualad. Is he like a knockoff of Aquaman? Is he his sidekick or apprentice or something? Honestly, when I was a kid, I thought this was Aquaman. A kid in my class corrected me saying it was Aqualad, and I was like, who's that? What's the difference? I mean, Aqualad, I guess, is a little younger, but he lives underwater, has long hair, and communicates with animals. I think it was a fair mix-up on my part. Raven and Star have a huge crush on him, and everyone besides Beast Boy thinks he's super cool. Beast Boy is, of course, jealous. He was supposed to be the MVP of this episode, as he can turn into a fish. They have a fun, petty rivalry. This is sort of reminiscent of the Sisters episode, with a newcomer that everyone but one character loves, though not done quite as well. Turns out that there's actually an entire army of Tridents, and Beast Boy and Aqualad are able to put aside their petty differences and work together to devise a plan to defeat all of the Tridents by pitting them against each other, then trapping them in a cave. Aqualad becomes an extended member of the team, just like Aquaman was in Justice League. Come on, guys, you can't tell me the parallels aren't there. This is a decent episode, fun enough. The underwater action was fun, and it was cool to see Beast Boy turn into all of these sea creatures, but there isn't much for character development here, aside from Beast Boy learning to work as a team and being jealous of the newcomer, both things we've already been through in this season, but it was just done better in the other ones. Still no Slade. Trident is a pretty generic villain, being voiced by an icon, and the gimmick of being an army doesn't make up for that. Again, enjoyable enough episode, but probably my least favorite one so far. It's relatively forgettable. Now we get to Masks, and we are finally back to the Slade story. Good. The last episode indicated that they may have been spinning their wheels a little bit. The cold open sees the Titans fighting a bunch of Slade henchmen or androids. I think they're androids. Makes sense. They won't give up any information Slade doesn't want them to know. Plus, makes it easier fodder for the Titans to beat up on or even destroy without having to actually kill anyone. Robin has become obsessed with Slade, letting his pursuit of him consume his every waking moment, even putting off hangout time with the group. As suggested by the episode title, a mysterious new masked character called Red X comes onto the scene, who seems to be working for Slade to retrieve these computer chips for him. Of course, it's obvious to us as adults that it's Robin, but as kids, I'm sure it wasn't as obvious. Robin is doing this to try to get closer to Slade, to figure out what he's up to, since none of his other tactics have been working. He pulled out all of the stops here to keep up the charade, even making a hologram of himself get trapped by Red X. Imagine if Red X was actually against the Titans. They'd be in serious trouble, because he knows all of their weaknesses. Of course, he knows their weakness because it's Robin and because he's their friend, but that's beside the point. Maybe he could hypothetically turn on them someday. The Titans figured it out essentially by accident, but Slade, of course, put it together on his own and was stringing Robin along the entire time. Slade is constantly one step ahead of the Titans. Just when Robin thinks he gained the upper hand on him, it turns out that wasn't even the real Slade, just another drone. He still hasn't really put himself directly in harm's way. This episode does a few things really well. We see much more of Slade than we had up until this point, yet he remains a mystery, which I kind of love. The completely expressionless face or mask adds to the mystery as well. Is he even human? It's so fun and intriguing when a show poses questions like this, and we can't wait to eventually get the answers. Robin goes through all of this hoopla, neglecting and even fighting his own teammates, straining his relationship with them and losing their trust. All for what? It didn't get him any closer to stopping Slade. And what were the computer chips about? I'm sure we'll find out soon. Robin's obsession with Slade is something that I remember quite well from the show. This episode seems to be the beginning of that. It ends on a shockingly dour note, especially considering it's not a part 1, teasing said fractured trust amongst the Titans and the ever-looming threat of Slade. A very effective episode in every way. Furthers the Slade story, twists and turns throughout, and is the beginning of a very interesting arc for Robin. But let's put the Slade stuff on hold for a second with episode 10, Mad Mod, which sees the Titans go up against a magical, eccentric, hypnotist villain named, you guessed it, Mad Mod, voiced by the great Malcolm McDowell.
Can't have those nasty superpowers disrupting my lecture now, can I?
They're actually already in his lair in the cold open. How did he manage to capture all of them? Guess they didn't really have time for that, so it must not be that important. Mod acts as a teacher of sorts, believing the Titans to be delinquents and trying to hypnotize them into behaving. Honestly, a pretty fun concept for a villain. Look, I know I said every episode should generally either advance the larger story or do some really good character work. This doesn't have either of those, but I don't care. This one is just a good old-fashioned good time. From the charismatic, memorable villain to the mind-bending Inception-like visuals, the wild mazes and traps, the funky, upbeat music, the Scooby-Doo chase scene through the hallway, this one is an absolute blast from start to finish. Of course, it was all technology as opposed to real magic, and Mad Mod was just a weird old guy sitting in a chair, because how else could this have possibly ended, especially with the Scooby-Doo vibe? There is no way all of that could have been real. But man, did it make for some amazing visuals. This is why I love animation. It allows you to do all kinds of crazy stuff that would be basically impossible to pull off in live action. That alone makes this episode worth the watch. Is the episode random? Absolutely. Is it as deep with the characters and themes as some of the others? Absolutely not. But it's highly entertaining, memorable, and unique. Can't complain about that. Nice little palate cleanser before getting back into the real stuff. It also highlights that despite his flaws, Robin is a fantastic problem solver, as he is the one who ultimately gets them out of this situation. Okay, sorry, I lied. The last episode before the big finale is actually Car Trouble. This is another one that's out of order. This episode aired as the season 1 finale, but takes place before the true finale, that being the two-parter Apprentice. Some people may prefer this one as the finale since it's more of a palate cleanser. Some prefer to end with the good stuff. I am definitely the latter. I like this one as sort of a calm before the storm. As the title suggests, this one is about the Titans' new car that Cyborg builds called the T-Car. It's pretty dope, I'm not gonna lie. I'd rock it. Okay, I promise I'm not trying to reference Scooby-Doo this much, but guys, I can't help it. You can't tell me that the villain that they fight in the electronics shop, Overload, isn't exactly like the villain from Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase. An underrated movie, if you ask me. And thus we get into the main plot point of the episode. The T-Car gets stolen by a couple of random dumbasses, then stolen from them by returning villain Gizmo, a standout from this season, and Cyborg spends the entire episode trying to get it back. This one is fine fun enough, basically a MacGuffin story trying to get the car back, nothing more, and it works for what it is. The chase at the end is pretty enjoyable, probably alongside Deep Six as one of my least favorites of the season, though I'd probably have this one a little bit higher, mainly because Gizmo is such an entertaining villain. Some people probably find him annoying, and I can definitely understand that, but I enjoy the hell out of him.
So long, snot munchers!
And there's a really nice moment between Cyborg and Raven where she acknowledges and understands why he cared so much about the car. There was literally a piece of him inside of it that made it what it was. That piece survives and leads to another scene where Raven motivates him to rebuild it and helps him do so. They honestly have a pretty underrated friendship. I really hope to see more of it down the line. Okay, is it just me? Or does the music that plays whenever Cyborg builds the car sound exactly like the Seinfeld theme? That's hilarious. Like I said, not the deepest or most memorable episode, but a fun little calm before the storm, and it's time for the storm. This is what we've all been waiting for, the true season finale, Apprentice Part 1 and 2, the only two-parter of this season, which was a little strange to me at the time, considering Justice League is almost all two-parters, but Teen Titans utilizes the 20-minute format so well that I'm not complaining. Generally, they can fit what they're trying to do into those 20 minutes, but this one definitely needed to be two parts. There is a lot there. The cold open is actually a dream of Robin's, where he's fighting Slade, unmasks him, and he's Robin. Great way to show how they might be more alike than Robin wants to admit, and he's becoming what he hates. His judgment is clearly clouded, and the other Titans know it. He's even taking out all of the henchmen himself. Come on, man, save some for your friends. Not cool. Part 1 is more of a light-hearted adventure, seeing the Titans racing to stop a time-freezing bomb that Slade planted, with him throwing all kinds of obstacles at them, including even bringing back Cinderblock. Alright, I know this is nitpicky, but there is no way in hell Robin is strong enough to throw Cinderblock around like that. He is just a dude after all. Of course, all of this was a ruse to hide Slade's real plan, drawing the Titans out to plant lethal probes into the cells of the other four Titans and using the direct threat on their lives to get Robin to work for him, using his love for his friends against him. Demented stuff, and that's how Part 1 ends. Wow, the stakes have never been higher, and Robin is powerless. It was such a wild cliffhanger back in the day, and it was a terribly long week awaiting for the conclusion. Part 2 begins almost immediately with Robin doing Slade's dirty work, stealing things for him. We're still not really sure what all of this is for. They make a pretty deadly team, not gonna lie. If it was permanent, the world would be in serious trouble. We got a little tease of that in Masks, but the difference here is that Robin was doing that deliberately to find out what Slade was up to. In this case, he's being blackmailed into doing exactly what Slade wants, and he can't get out of it. Okay, the I already have a father moment was fantastic. The music, the bats, a great way to drop Batman's name without actually dropping it. The first hint we get at him in this show.
I already have a father.
Robin even steals something from Wayne Enterprises. Look, I know that Robin is smart and a great strategist and that the other four are holding back, but I really feel like they should be able to subdue him, no? Despite all of that, Robin gets his ass handed to him by Slade every single time he tries to fight back. Establishing Slade is not only an immense intellectual threat, but a physical one as well. Robin wins by essentially threatening to kill himself along with his friends. That's dark, man. By the way, watching the Titans turning all red and slowly almost die was pretty disturbing, especially as a kid. Slade blows up the entire plan to stop that. Man, he really likes Robin, huh? Makes you wonder what else he has planned for him. This was a super intense episode and a fantastic way to end this season. It brought everything that had been building up to a head, but left room for so much more. Robin had put so much of his time and energy into Slade, he wasn't seeing the person he was becoming and was losing sight of what mattered. He had complete tunnel vision. Fighting his friends, especially Starfire, whom he clearly has a special place in his heart for, was gut-wrenching, especially knowing the stakes. Slade spent the entire 40 minutes trying to convince Robin and the audience that they are exactly the same, and does a great job sowing some doubt. The parallels are definitely there, and it's pretty eerie. They're both incredibly smart, driven, ambitious, and have an obsessive desire to win and be right. They both have very high opinions of themselves and will stop at nothing to get what they want. However, there is one key difference. Robin has a heart. He cares about people, especially his friends, and he proves that in the end. His selflessness, combined with quick thinking, is what wins out. Slade only cares about people insofar as what he can use them for, and will use any manipulative tactics at his disposal to get them to do what he wants. And trust me, this is just the beginning of that. I know Robin's obsession with Slade isn't over, but it was nice to see him finally realize what's important, at least for now. A perfect culmination to his character arc in this season. The perfect season finale is satisfying in its own right, but also teases the future. This one does that. Slade survived, and we still don't know much about him. We know he's very cunning and has no qualms about manipulating people's desires, but his ultimate goal remains a mystery. What is he collecting all of these objects and devices for? We still have no idea. He doesn't appear to be a typical mustache-twirling, destroy-the-world type villain. He seems to have bigger plans. After all, he left Robin alive for a reason. What is that reason? What does he have planned for him? We'll find out. I'm going to bleed this right into my season wrap-up. Guys, I'm not going to beat around the bush here. I went into this rewatch after many years expecting to like it, but holy crap, were my expectations exceeded. I do not remember the show being this good and the themes being this relevant. As a kid, I really enjoyed the action, humor, and Slade as a villain, and don't get me wrong, all of that stuff is still great, but I never realized until now just how good the character development is. They managed to flesh out the characters so well, not just throughout the season, but within the 20-minute episodes themselves as well. Not only do the characters develop on their own, but so do their relationships with each other, both one-on-one and as a whole team. Robin was really the only character I was familiar with going into the series, and I knew him as Batman's sidekick, nothing else. It was a nice change to see him as a leader for once, a role he takes very seriously, maybe a little too seriously. He certainly has many leadership qualities. He's smart, driven, and intuitive. He often, despite not having any powers, is the reason the Titans are victorious due to his leadership and ability to solve problems. But his ambition can get him into trouble sometimes as well. His obsession with Slade clouds his judgment and causes tunnel vision, and as with many intelligent people, he believes he is always right and is prone to disregarding the input or potential contributions of his teammates. Masks and Apprentice both highlight how far he is willing to go to stop the bad guy, a righteous goal, but also shows how that puts his friends at a distance, and he is still always a step behind Slade. Clearly, there is something going on between Robin and Starfire, mostly just little hints so far, but the chemistry is clearly there. I think their dynamic is really sweet, and I can't wait to see it further explored. One of my favorite moments between them is in Sisters, when Robin reminds Star of her importance to the team and the fact that she is irreplaceable, and having to fight each other in Apprentice was gut-wrenching, even more so than it was for him to fight the others. Starfire on paper could easily be a one-dimensional, disposable character, but I think she works really well as a fish-out-of-water character who doesn't really understand the customs, slang, and sense of humor of humans.
Perhaps we should do the hanging out. We never have before.
She's very naive, but it's somewhat endearing, and clearly she's trying to learn, and does so slowly as the season goes along. I mentioned her relationship with Robin. Her relationship with Raven is quite interesting as well, which is really highlighted in episode 7, Switched. Raven is a cynical loner, Star is a naive optimist. They couldn't be any more different. But that's what makes their dynamic so interesting. They grow and learn from each other, have a better understanding of how the other person thinks and operates, and why they are that way. Speaking of why they are that way, Nevermore is one of my favorite episodes of the season and in the entire show, as it gives us our first peek behind Raven's well-guarded curtain. That episode had some of the best character work I have ever seen in a 20-minute episode of TV, turning a character that was essentially a complete mystery up until that point into the most complex and interesting character in the show, someone who puts people at a distance for fear of getting hurt or hurting them. She is a character that will continue to surprise you. Aside from her sweet moments with Star, she has a couple with Cyborg as well. I loved when she helped him rebuild the car. Cyborg has some pretty interesting stuff going on in his own right, wrestling with his identity as a half-human, half-robot, trying to figure out if he's human enough, while showing others that are similar to him of how important the human part is, despite how cool having robot parts may be. He is a cool, confident character on the surface, but has much more going on underneath. Cyborg's friendship with Beast Boy is also quite interesting. They have a really fun and goofy dynamic, kind of the hooligans of the group. Unlike Robin, they certainly enjoy their leisure time and don't always take everything so seriously. They play video games with each other a lot, they try to play pranks on each other, and their banter is great. Beast Boy in particular is the fun-loving goofball of the group. Usually it's harmless and healthy, but it can get him into trouble sometimes, and he learns to strike a better balance. I'm guessing the humor is a bit of a cover, and there's a lot more going on underneath what's on the surface for him as well, and we will dig a little deeper into that as the seasons go along. As far as getting us to like and care about a group of characters, Teen Titans excels. Of course, the main storyline was great, building intrigue with Slade and slowly revealing pieces of him as the season went along, but still leaving many questions unanswered as we get into Season 2. He was a constant looming presence over the season, living rent-free in the mind of the main protagonist. He's calm, cool, and collected till the end, and is always one step ahead of his enemies. Amongst a slew of great voice actors, Ron Perlman is the standout of the season. He's the reason the character is so terrifying in such a quiet, calculated way. That voice has haunted my nightmares for the last 20 years. But it's not just the larger story. Some of the one-off episodes explored some real interesting stuff as well, theme and character-wise. This show is about some real-life, adult stuff, and that all went over my head as a kid. Of course, some of it is easier to see and digest for younger audiences, such as Divide and Conquer and Final Exam being about the importance of teamwork, Forces of Nature being about using your gifts for good, and Switched being about understanding different perspectives. But Sisters is about feeling like you're not good enough, the sum of his parts is about identity, and the most obvious example here is Nevermore. Wow, I did not understand that one at all as a kid. An exploration of depression and mental health I did not expect in a show like this. But it's not just the one-off episodes. The Slade story, particularly Masks and Apprentice, explores some really interesting stuff with Robin. The dangers of obsession, neglecting your friends, and how he is clearly a control freak who refuses to do things any other way besides his own. Apprentice also highlights Slade's abusive and manipulative nature, something I know we will see a lot more of in Season 2 with the Terra storyline. And none of this takes away from the entertainment factor and escapism. We watch shows like this to be transported into a world different than our own, and it absolutely does that. Teen Titans is popcorn escapist entertainment with awesome action, incredible superpowers, and wacky villains, and one certainly can enjoy it just for that. But it does so while also weaving in relatable themes and character struggles that give people of all ages something to latch onto, the exact type of balance I look for in my pop culture entertainment. The technical aspects shine too. The animation has aged flawlessly, the style is unique, Cartoon Network meets anime. Mad Mod in particular was a visual feast. The intro and music in general are awesome. The voice acting is top-notch across the board. I already mentioned Ron Perlman. Scott Menville brings the obsessive, fearless leader qualities of Robin. Hynden Walsh perfectly captures the innocent naivete of Starfire, as well as the exact opposite vibe that her sister Blackfire brings. Greg Sipes is perfect for the goofy, energetic Beast Boy. Carrie Payton brings the confident yet caring energy of Cyborg, and Tara Strong, a legend of voice acting, as the cynical, reserved Raven, plus all of her different personalities in Nevermore. The side villains wouldn't be nearly as memorable without the great voice talents of Lauren Tom, Tom Kenny, Roger Bumpus, Tracy Walker, Clancy Brown, and more. I'm sure you recognize some of those names. I just love when legendary actors randomly pop up in stuff, especially animation. Aside from a couple less than stellar episodes relative to the rest of the season, this was a fantastic season of TV. I can't speak for the future seasons as I haven't seen them in way too long, but this one was really firing on all cylinders. You really can't ask for much else in a cartoon. It has everything I would want and more, and it has something to offer everyone. This was an absolute blast to do, and not gonna lie, being a much shorter season than Yu-Gi-Oh! Helped a lot, as well as not having to critique gameplay so much. I would very much love to continue this review series. Hopefully this one does well enough to allow for that. And look, if you can't or don't want to contribute to my Patreon, I completely understand. That is a huge ask. But I do ask that everyone watching, if they enjoy the video, to please drop a like. It costs nothing and literally takes a second. It goes a really long way for boosting videos into the algorithm, getting me more views, helping me grow my channel, and increasing the chances that I continue this series. I would really appreciate that. Comments are also very helpful for the algorithm. What are your thoughts on Season 1 of Teen Titans and the show as a whole? Let me know down below. Also, if you're interested in seeing more of this type of content, please consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell to keep up with all my future videos. Thank you so much for watching. Seriously, if you made it this far, I love you. Stay tuned for some more fun stuff, and I will see you soon.